Hello and welcome to the SpaceChem Tournament 2025, Round 6, InfiniChem. It's a collaboration between SpaceChem and InfiniFactory. InfiniFactory is a game very similar to Minecraft, though it's not inspired by Minecraft. I won't get into the lore of exactly why. In this game, all the inputs come in one block at a time, at least in the first campaign, and the blocks get melded together to form the outputs. You can't unmeld blocks except by perhaps destroying part of the product. For example, if there was something like this with an eviscerator, then you meld together blocks and then they're unmelded by destroying the middle block. Now the unique thing about InfiniFactory is that you can control the input rate. As you can see the input rate in the bottom right. I can put it on a max speed, which means a block comes out every cycle, or I can make it very slow if I want, with a block coming out every 8 cycles. And all the blocks get melded together to form a finished product that gets sent to the output, in this case a space shuttle. So currently the input rate in this puzzle is 4 for in this case specifically 4 in the upper input, 8 in the middle input, which is twice the first, and 16 in the lower input. So we can say that the input rate in this is 4. We also get an eviscerator, which you get in InfiniFactory, because in InfiniFactory you don't have bond minuses. So if you want to destroy something, you put an eviscerator on it, in this case quantum tunnel. If I want to throw it away, then it will be a quantum tunnel to the recycler. Though honestly, for this puzzle, this is mostly an excuse. You've got an eviscerator here that you can use to debond, which is useful in this puzzle, but it's really out of the way from the output, so it's not incentivized. Let's have a look at the solutions. With an input rate of 4, in 7th place we've got Spiritual Shampoo. You can control the input rate by the first number that appears in your solution name. So, Spiritual Shampoo creates pairs of carbon as fast as I can, though it could be faster by outputting it in the upper output instead of the lower output. I'm not sure why they chose the lower output. Or no, it's not that it could be faster, it's the input rate is 4 no matter what. So it's just a matter of latency. Still, this is a very simple double pumped reactor. Just input once when the... I haven't said about the limitation of this puzzle. Atoms and molecules must be inputted as soon as they hit the edge of the pipe. Unlike in SpaceChem, where you can just have atoms sitting in pipes, in InfiniFactory, since you control the input rate, just if you just put an input rate of 1, then it doesn't matter the input rate. You can just grab as many atoms as you like from the conveyor or from the pipe. So this is a small limitation so that it will be a bit more interesting. This is why Spiritual Shampoo inputs relatively early compared to when it grabs the carbon and then bonds it. Let's see here, creating the iron square. It's just a matter of blue timing and red inputting it in the and stalling on input. Red has enough time to input and then go all the way to grab it, so no need for help from the blue Waldo. Pretty simple. And even simpler is the way they handle the sulfur, which is just hammer bond and then drop it. Now, this is a bit more complicated, handling the iron with the carbon. Though honestly at this input rate it's not that difficult to just input as you need. Having the carbon here in the corner means that you can bond from above it and from below it, and this is a symmetric product, so it's easy to do one half and then the other half. You may notice that there are no flip-flops because everything in InfiniFactory works with sensors. If you want to create something that goes once to one direction and then once to the other direction, you use a sensor. If you want to count stuff, you use a sensor as well. This is also why you get 4 sensors, though nobody used these many sensors still. And the end product is pretty simple, just taking the iron carbon amalgamation and bonding the sulfur to it. Pretty straightforward, not very optimized, but that's why it's in last place. The metric for this round was cycles, so the metric is 362. Next up is Astronelson with 4 folded shuttle. Just folded shuttle, sorry, 4 is the input rate. Astronelson did the carbon handling a bit smarter by doing it in the input and output in the same row. You could bring the carbon all the way to the edge of the output. But aside from that, these are practically identical. But handling the iron and the sulfur is done a bit smarter by doing it 2 iron to 1 sulfur each time, since the end is symmetrical again, you can just have it this way. A lot simpler and no need for 3 reactors, is saved on a reactor. Now let's see how he combines everything. Okay, so here having 2 open spaces means that the output can be a bit different, a bit changed from the intended output, but that means that there's space to have this is basically doing 1 layer of carbon, 2 layers of iron, and then another layer of carbon, except 2 layers at a time. So basically half-half. Blue handling the first half and then red handling the second half. The second worst one, yeah. This is also not very optimized with an input rate of 4, so it means that there's a lot of room to handle the inputs, but again, you can't have molecules waiting in the pipe, so you have to, in this case, input the carbon pair every 8 cycles. So you have a lot of time to input it. This is not a big jump. Let's see some better stuff. Unfortunately, nobody did an input rate of 3, so we're jumping straight to an input rate of 2, which is probably the fastest input rate you can get. So let's look at Team Science, which is Rexkix, gggol, and Britboy, with their solution hurting your fefefes. Let's first look at the fefefes. This is a clever way to create a square of iron by having blue do the first pair and then red grab this pair and bond another to it. Not exactly a double pump, but it's like a double pump of pairs that goes in different directions. Still, the iron needs to be inputted every 4 cycles, so there's plenty of room. Carbon, on the other hand, this reactor takes the iron and practically glues the carbon to the iron in the fastest way they can, which means going around the iron to bond it, but it means that some of the carbons have to be bonded in bad locations. So although this has 8 carbons, you later need to debond them, and the only way to debond stuff is to send it to the eviscerator. Here they send the weird molecule to the eviscerator just so that they can swap 2 carbons and output everything. This product is practically just 2 bonds and you have a finished product. That and the sulfur, which they did with the minimal amount of symbols. No, not the minimal amount. You could make it 1 symbol less, which we'll soon see, but still, it's very symbol efficient to have a wall door in a line. And here you need to input three times in a row, so that what you get from here, you won't get accidentally input the first and then the second will get stuck in the pipe. So 3 inputs in a row, again with a stick, very symbol efficient. A single bond, both bonds, the carbon and the sulfur they get from the bottom reactor. A single bond to fix that. Pretty simple, pretty efficient with symbols. Though this thing they did here takes a few more cycles than perhaps is necessary. Let's see. Faster solutions by largest common denominator, which are Lazy Comet and Dariush. The carbon they make into sticks of 4, which is relatively simple with an input rate of 2. You just have red input every second command, or in this case just stolen inputs a few times, while blue does bond plus every second command. Or not exactly, but still. And they output it not exactly at the same place, which will help later. The iron and sulfur, on the other hand, is a bit more complicated and very clever in my opinion. Creating a pair of irons that then can bond to another pair, or bond to move it again, using the sensor to see that the molecule is finished. Here it doesn't bond straight away, but it does. By it being double pumped, they can have a different timing for the first path and the second pass. And generally it's one of the few solutions that use loops inside the big loops. Okay, so how they handle combining everything is a lot simpler than other stuff we saw, because it's just connecting 2 sticks. wonder if this could have been... Ah, no, they need to stall for an uneven amount, for an odd amount of cycles here, because they have a rotate, and blue doesn't have a rotate. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it needs to be debonded. The debonding is also pretty straightforward. The only unfortunate side effect here is that you get 5 molecules that you need to output and then input, which takes a few more cycles, so it increases the latency a bit. And then it's very straightforward to bond everything. Having the iron be only bonded once makes it the double bond here. Otherwise they'd need to, if it was only one bond that you needed, you'd need to do a bond minus and then a bond plus, and this way it's a single bond minus. Yep. Pretty straightforward, pretty optimized. Only 220 cycles. Next up is... Wait, the name of the largest common denominator solution is Too Fast, Too Furious. Next up is DariusOne with time is a flat circle. Let's see what... we'll look at the carbons in a minute. Let's first look at the iron. This simple solution of just having 2 Waldos in a loop, one creating the square and the other just grabbing it and bringing it to the output, shows that it's really not that complicated. Red could have gone here and then the grab would have been here. It's really just 2 loops with a handoff. You don't need the complex stuff that we saw with Team Science, for example. If they wanted, the output could have even been one to the right as well, so it being in the middle is a choice, not a necessity. And the sulfur, as I've hinted before, could be done with an input hammer to save a single symbol, and then blue doing a single line to do pairs. Very simple, efficient, very simple. Oh, we accidentally finished it, it's so fast. Let's first look at this. Combining the iron with the sulfur. Pretty simple, just bond twice and then rotate. Not even hammering output, because it's not the limiting factor here. In fact, they have a long pipe so that they can delay it a bit. Now let's take a look at the carbon. Now here we see something interesting. All this reactor does is take the carbon from the third column and put it in the fourth column. That's it. Blue hammering output, red's just doing in swap, in swap, in swap. Just bringing the carbon from the third to the fourth. This is hilarious. Why is it helpful to be in the fourth column instead of the third? Because then you can create pairs of carbon with double pumping this way. If it was in the third column, it would have taken 2 more cycles and you wouldn't have enough. And you wouldn't have enough time to do it. Very nice. Now let's see here. By the way, the annotations here are just wrong. Like this. Shame. Bonding it to the iron is very simple. It being one cell downwards, one cell below, means that with the same motion you can input bonds. You can bond, input bond. And there's enough time to do it double pumped. This is a nice way to flip the molecule by going up and back down. I think they stall a bit on input here, yeah, and one cycle of stalling here because they have 3 rotates, which would make it odd, the length of the loop. This is one of the advantages of having the input rate not be as fast as possible. You can stall on input. That was 2 cycles faster than the previous solution. In third place, let's look at second place, which is ToughThought with tunnels found. Let's first look at sulfur, which is pretty simple. It's not a line, but that's because ToughThought wants the sulfur to be in the corner, which makes sense. It's being closer to whatever they use. The iron then is bonded straight to the sulfur. With blue doing the inputting. I'm not sure why you didn't stall on input, but doesn't really matter. This is also a handoff, so clearly the best approach here to do the circles of iron. Then, wait. ToughThought also has the carbon feeding directly into the eviscerator, but instead of it being just to move it to the fourth column, this is to move it. ToughThought is moving it to the fourth column, and every second carbon takes one cell up, probably to set up them being pairs. Let's look at the last reactor, which only uses the bottom half of the reactor, which is nice. Grab a pair of carbon, move another pair of carbon out of the way, and then it's just inputting twice and bonding. Very simple. The carbons being coming in pairs is very efficient. Very symbols efficient as well. No double pumping anywhere. Just two Waldos working in tandem. And it turns out to be a lot faster. In fact, 9 cycles faster, which is, when you're talking about latency, it's a lot. And in first place we have Team Combustible Lemons. Congratulations, Team Combustible Lemons, which are brookieoz, YellowBunny, and bigmangohead. With their solution, just score? I'm not sure. 207, yeah, with an underscore to make sure that the 2 is the speed of the solution. YellowBunny says that the underscore is a 0 width space, but SpaceChem doesn't like 0 width spaces. Yeah. Let's look at your solution. The sulfur is, as we've seen with an input hammer, same way, the most efficient you can get. The iron is, I think this is the least symbols we've seen to create an iron square, thanks to red being a line. It's pretty elegant having blue create a pair and then just bring it one down, while red brings the output here. Also pretty simple. The best solutions are the ones that look, why haven't I done that? Then carbon gets bonded into 5 that go down and 3 that bonds directly into the iron and then outputted up. Now, why would you think they split it 5-3? Well, when you have a stick of 5, you can teleport away the middle carbon, and then you're left with 2 sticks of 2. In this case, they actually don't have 2 sticks of 2, they have 1 stick of 2, and then the other carbons are swapped here for a faster output. But still, they used the teleporter to have a single atom being teleported away, and they made it a stick so that they can rotate and save a lot of latency. bigmangohead says they tried to do it with 4 instead of 5, but it just didn't work. Okay. Still, having it a stick, and then you can rotate the stick to bring it faster to the output and debond it here to bring it faster to the output is very clever, and they get their sticks already almost in position to be bonded. So here they take their iron and bond it to the sulfur in a very straightforward way. Blue in a line with 2 rotates to bring it from the bottom input to the top output. bigmangohead says that the realization is that all of the latency in the puzzle is determined by the last thing that goes to the eviscerator. So we send the first 5 carbon we get to the eviscerator, and the next 3 get sent through a shorter path to the output. That's clever. That's indeed the limiting factor, which is why you got first place. And the way to grab the sulfur here without going all the way to the sulfur is pretty clever. Now here did you put a sensor here instead of an arrow just so that you don't have to work out the timing of the blue Waldo? Okay. Yeah. A sensor instead of an arrow works, I guess. Bonding with the remaining carbon is very simple with the location they left it in. Just slide the iron up, bond once, and then you have a finished molecule. Well done. Well done. 207 cycles. Now, let's look at a fun solution by Team Combustible Lemons. Single Waldo with an input rate of 5. By the way, this is the only solution that didn't put the input rate at the beginning of the name. I told you can put it anywhere in the name, as long as it's the first number. Let's have a look at it. The first reactor creates sticks of 4 with going back and forth, back and forth. And using the sensor instead of a flip-flop. Pretty straightforward. The only downside is that because red has to both drop it and then come all the way to the input, it has to be a low input rate. The sticks of 4 become a block of 8 for some reason. Okay, doing it in a single wall though is pretty simple. Let's look at the iron. Now this is a common use case for a sensor. When you create something which is square and you test for the last atom in the square, the 4th atom, and then you can output the square. Pretty straightforward. And if you only need 2 sulfur, you can just go over the grab twice from 2 different directions and then bonds to the iron. I'm guessing I haven't actually looked. The timing is pretty well here. No need for long pipes, though this does need a long pipe. Let's look how they handled the carbon. I can already guess without looking at it. Yeah. Teleporting here, the carbon creates 4 sticks or 3 sticks of 2 carbons, and then 1 separated stick, and it's just a matter of bringing the last carbon back. And once you have all the carbon in place and the iron and sulfur in place, okay. I guess for some reason it wasn't ideal to bond. You don't want a bonder here because the first time it comes unbonded and the second time it comes bonded. So bringing the first carbon up means you don't accidentally get a double bond between the carbon. Okay. That's it for round 6, and I'll see you next week.